Hi, everybody. This is Loren Baker of Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's episode of the SEJ Show. With me, I have Jessica Foster, and we're going to be talking about everything from copy, SEO to LinkedIn. Hey, Jessica, how's it going?
Hi, it's good. I'm glad to be here. Super excited to talk about LinkedIn.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I've known you online for a while, but I think this is the first time we've met, quote unquote, in real life. So
Yeah, is it real life? I don't
yeah,
know.
I'm still trying to figure that out. It's close enough to real life.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
closer than we were in the past. So
Yeah.
pleasure to have you on. Thanks to you so much for making the time out of your day to jump on the SEA show.
Yeah.
So before we get started, how about if you give myself and our audience a little bit about your background and everything that you do and you love doing in the world of digital marketing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like a lot of my Facebook marketer friends that I have, they've kind of seen my transition from SEO broadly to focus on content optimization back to SEO generally. So I am the founder and content strategist at Keys and Copy, which is my own SEO content agency. But currently, I am working as the associate director of SEO at Media Monks, which is a larger digital media company. And so I am back deeply in the world of SEO. So I have had my own agency for about 6 years, and then I kind of got stole back over to agency life. But I love it. It's been an awesome learning opportunity diving into that. And I'm still taking on, my side projects with SEO content optimization and obviously writing for Search Engine Journal. So SEO content in particular is kind of my bread and butter.
And thank you for that. Have you ever been in-house before?
I have been in-house. So before I started Keys and Copy, I worked for an SEO agency based in Seattle doing legal SEO, which is not the most exciting industry for me personally, but it was really good experience to kind of work in that environment. And so a lot of my clients in the past have been in the legal industry. And then I just sort of, typical millennial, I wanted to work for myself. So I started Keys and Copy.
Perfect.
So now I am back in house, which I never thought was going to happen, but I like it.
Awesome. Yeah, I like it too. Except for it's not one thing is kind of not fair anymore is that everybody works from home now. So it's just
yeah, it's not really
I know all my
in-house.
neighbors now for some reason. They
Yeah.
all work from home and then they think it's the greatest thing ever. And I'm just like, you're just ruining it for me because I can't brag about it anymore.
I love working from home, but I also only have a dog, so I don't have
Awesome.
interruptions.
Well, if the dog does bark, dog is a guest of the show as well. That's how things work here. And you are a VIP contributor to SEJ, so thank you very much for doing that. You had gotten out of SEO and a little bit deeper into content optimization. What were the differences there that you did on the content optimization side, which you would not consider as much from an SEO perspective?
Not fully sure I understand, but I think when I was focusing on SEO broadly, there was a lot of different skill sets that are required in that I personally don't have. So not much in terms of back-end development and the technical side, though I'm slowly becoming kind of refreshed in that world. But I kind of realized that there is a very, and it's evolved a lot already, but a more traditional approach to content optimization that, keyword stuffing and all of that good stuff, that it doesn't necessarily apply anymore, but not many people were writing about that and kind of redefining the approach to creating what's called quality content. And so I felt like there was just a gap in that information. Now, a lot of people are talking about that, which is great. But at the time when I think I joined Search Engine Journal in 2018 or so, there wasn't a lot talking about what is good content and what does it mean to optimize web content. So, I'm most passionate about content and kind of understanding the data that we have available to optimize content for position 0 and all of these things that we don't have a ton of first party data about, but making sort of speculations about what makes an impact on content, which kind of leads into the LinkedIn kind of topic, because there's not a lot of people who are writing about LinkedIn SEO or even considering LinkedIn as a search algorithmically driven platform. And so that was an area, again, not much in terms of like super valuable data at the time, but I was like, let's test this out. Let's try to just determine what are the surfacing factors for LinkedIn, and really consider LinkedIn to be a search algorithm driven platform, and see if we can apply some of the same SEO principles to LinkedIn. And here we are.
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to thank you so much for something that you just said. Mm-hmm. Treating LinkedIn as a search algorithm based platform, right? So I've constantly had this argument with people over the years. They're like, SEO is going away. It's going to become all AI driven. Google's not even looking at what SEOs used to do years ago. I'm like, look, SEO is not, first of all, search engine. Google is not the only search engine. Every single site out there has a search engine and has an algorithm. Mm-hmm. I just got off of a call where we're doing Wayfair PPC and SEO planning within wayfair.com. Previous to that, it was a meeting about Amazon internal optimization and everything else. So when people just talk about SEO as Google, it drives me crazy, because Google is an entry point for finding all of these other vehicles. But if you go to Google and you search for something and you go to the landing page at Amazon that's showing up from Amazon on Google, chances are you're going to go straight to the search box. It's going to be incredibly irrelevant to what you're searching for. Mm-hmm. And you're going to try to find what you want, right? Based upon Prime, based upon deliveries, based upon sizes, things like that. Same thing with LinkedIn. So to me, search is the glue that holds the internet together, and it helps people find what they're looking for, wherever that may be. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
As long as people are actively searching for things, SEO is going to be a thing. I've been kind of on my milk crate about this for a while when I wrote about Pinterest. Mm-hmm. So Pinterest, Amazon, App Store, YouTube, and there was another one I'm forgetting that are like search out. Oh, TikTok.
Oh
yeah. Or TikTok is like, hold on a second.
All right. You're good.
I just got over COVID, so here we are.
Oh no. Perfect
time. TikTok is like considered to be like a social platform, right? But people are actively searching for particular topics within there, and people are optimizing the descriptions of their video. And so all of this is like, I don't know if someone's called it this before, but I call it social SEO, and there's not a lot of people writing about it, and it's not a lot of data available, unfortunately, but it's something that I'm like personally curious about. So hopefully gonna write more about that in the future.
And then also backing up a little bit with like content optimization. So the question I had was, okay, so there's content for SEO and there's content for everything else besides SEO. And then if you can hit that sweet spot of content that can be utilized in email campaigns and drip campaigns for nurturing, for social, driving traffic to that, and everything else, and it also helps SEO at the same time, it's the perfect storm of content optimization, right? Because all of those signals and all of that usability and all of that crux data helps something at the end of the day. There's not necessarily a scientific study yet saying that crux data and interaction and everything else helps you rank or whatever it may be, but it definitely helps at the end of the day. And it gives you, for anyone that's actually being paid to develop content, it gives you more KPIs to judge the success of that ROAS that a company may invest in you to produce that content, right? So if you're just looking at SEO response for that content, and then they drop that into an email blast to like 300,000 people, and they make, $50,000 off of that one piece of content that people click on from the email blast and then buy, that's a KPI right there.
Right. Being like really close to the freelancer space, I see this a lot. It's like not a well articulated value of SEO content. It's sort of like, hey, I can help you rank. But at the end of the day, most businesses don't really care about that. Even if they say they do, they're looking for engagement and conversions and sales. And so if you are experienced enough to craft content that not only ranks, but gets your audience engaged, whatever metrics that matter to your particular business, then that's like a huge, value add for businesses. And then, like getting a little more into like omni-channel content marketing, whatever you want to call it, with like email and social and stuff is not always my bag. But, if there's, I've created content before that's SEO'd, but
Right.
as a landing page, but then is also the landing place for paid ads. So there's like, you have to speak to that particular audience, and there's a little bit of market research involved,
Yep.
though I'm realizing agencies don't really do this robustly, which is totally fine. It's time consuming and it can be expensive, but the better you understand your audience, the better you can articulate the message in your content, no matter what platform you're pushing the content out to. So if you're taking kind of a boilerplate approach to a piece of content by optimizing for search terms and that's it, you're probably not going to sell much with it, honestly. So all of that good stuff.
So let's take a moment. We'll transition into LinkedIn a bit, but first I'd like to thank our sponsors here at Search Engine Journal and the SEJ Show. First of all, InMotion Hosting, fabulous, dedicated WordPress hosting company, super quick. They've been supporting us for quite a while. And then obviously SEMrush, and I'm still drinking out of my SEMrush coffee mug, even though it's lunchtime here. But thank you so much for SEMrush and InMotion Hosting for sponsoring today's episode of the SEJ Show. LinkedIn. How did LinkedIn get so hot and so popular again? Like, what happened? It's been around forever.
I've tried to pinpoint that myself, and I really am not sure. I'm sure there was some degree of LinkedIn like amping up their marketing, because it was definitely seen as like the resume platform for like college students and career people. And I think like my hunch would be that LinkedIn had begin kind of rebranding itself as more of a networking platform rather than a place that you put up your accolades and experience. And so you're starting to see more ads from them, more social posts from them. And so whatever they've been doing has been effective, while still maintaining that idea that LinkedIn is a professional space. So they have not gotten pulled into sort of the more casual nature of Facebook and Twitter, which I think is really unique. It's still mostly a landing place for professionals, and you see really valuable content with some outliers, right? So not everyone treats it as a professional space. But I remember like in college, you just went to LinkedIn to post up your resume and find potential jobs. And now it's like so much more than that. And I think the SEO research, it helps us see that it's so much more than that. Like you can grow your following, you can grow your influence, you can generate leads through LinkedIn, not just, applying for jobs. There's huge, what you would consider influencers on LinkedIn at this point that have, hundreds of thousands to millions of connections and follows and get tons of views and clicks on their content. So I just try to say, like, don't underestimate the value of LinkedIn and just assume it's a place to like include your headshot. It's the number 2 platform for me in terms of lead generation. The other one being Facebook, though recently it's kind of all swapped because I'm just engaging more on LinkedIn. But it's been a really good inbound channel for keys and copy to generate content leads. So
Yeah.
don't be sleeping on LinkedIn.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, like, for the past 4 years, at the end of every year at SEJ, I do like my own little, well, we do our own analysis of what we've invested in social media marketing, typically just sharing of content, right? And here's what happens. Like Facebook sends a lot of traffic, but that traffic bounces, right? Like that's just what it is. That's how Facebook works. Twitter sends a decent amount of traffic, and a lot of that's not us promoting, it's other people promoting things on Twitter, and we get some kind of interaction. LinkedIn, by far, we get the most ebook downloads, the most newsletter subscriptions, all of these micro events that we've set up for tracking on SEJ. LinkedIn by far outperforms any other social media network. And if it wasn't just for traffic, if it wasn't like LinkedIn gets pretty good traffic too, but we want to have traffic numbers since we're a publication. So we still do like the other stuff, but like we're just looking at the numbers, like in terms of the quality of the user, what they're doing on the site, the fact that they're either, buying maybe an ad or something, downloading, et cetera, getting into the funnel. LinkedIn, and it just makes sense. This is a B2B platform. Now, here's my theory, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this. LinkedIn sucked for so long because their inbox was unpoliced, right? You log into LinkedIn and you'd have 100 messages of people just spamming you. Spam, 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 spam. I kind of noticed that went away about 3 months ago. And then at the same time, I see LinkedIn as being like the no nonsense. Like you can do Twitter, whatever, play around all day. Facebook, Snap, TikTok, to me, it's all fantasy land. But LinkedIn is no nonsense. You have your specifications, you have your university, you have everything else. The people that are looking at you or looking and interacting with you are people that are your colleagues and may hire you, or you may hire them in the future. I just see it as being like so much. I think people are craving a little bit of professionalism in social media. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I honestly find LinkedIn to be refreshing in that sense because it's a little less of people fighting it out in the comments about things. It's people sharing, for the most part, really valuable insights and genuinely looking for networking opportunities with people in their industry. And so I find that when I post content on there, it's less likely to become controversial. And it just seems like a really good place to have genuine conversations about, for me, marketing. And it's more transparent. Like if you have your experience and your workplace and your university, it's a little like you are developing your personal brand on the platform. And if Facebook is a little like you can just hide behind a profile picture.
Right.
If that, sometimes you don't even use a real one. Some people use cartoons and stuff. So I like that, to some degree who you're interacting with and where their connections are. And I can talk about that in terms of surfacing factors on LinkedIn as like a valuable search factor. Again, not having the most valuable like data available. And I don't want to get sidetracked, but I can talk about that now.
Yeah, let's get into that. But I will say that I have no time. I ain't got time for arguing in social media comments. This is not 5th grade recess. All right. Like if someone states something on social media and someone argues with me, like I just don't see the point. Go argue with yourself. That's another thing I do like about LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, how does the algorithm work? Are there ways to surface material, content, posts yourself within LinkedIn that's helpful to find those great jobs, that's helpful to make those great connections, and in your case, it's helpful to utilize LinkedIn as a lead funnel?
Yeah. So there is, and I always caveat, the data that we have available for LinkedIn is not 100% solid. We don't have the tools that are like, here's the search volume for a particular search term on LinkedIn. But as far as we can tell that there's like primary, I'm calling surfacing factors for the platform. So one of them being the number of your connections. So if you post something, that content can be displayed to your first degree connection, second degree, third degree, fourth degree, and perhaps beyond that, but LinkedIn doesn't specify that. So if you ever see that you're on the timeline and you see content from someone who's not a connection to you, that's an example of where the algorithm is pushing content to your timeline through a first or second degree connection. And so when you have a higher number of connections on the platform, you have more chances of your content getting displayed to a wider audience. So in this case, like, I know you don't want to open up your inbox to a massive amount of spam, but to some degree, having more connections definitely serves your purposes there. Another factor is engagement on content. So your own engagement on content on the platform and people engaging with your content. So if I post an SEO meme and a marketer comments on my post, one of their connections can see my post through that connection.
Yeah.
Just by the matter of engagement, and by me, engaging on similar content within my industry, people can see that boosted within their timeline. So from what we can see, that's a pretty strong indicator of how the algorithm surfaces content within the timeline. And then within search, right? If you imagine LinkedIn search being very similar to Google, though the algorithm is probably not as complex. But if I'm looking for freelance writer, for example, LinkedIn is going to surface at the top of the search results profiles that are more or less optimized for that search term. So you'll see within the headline or the tagline for the person's profile, they most often use that search term within their headline. They'll use it within the about section of LinkedIn, and probably within their experience and recommendations even. And so this is part of the work that I was testing earlier on, is how my views would increase through the LinkedIn analytics if I simply optimized my profile for search terms. So way back, I think I was SEO content writer, and I had a whole activity of updating my headline, my about section, and my experience sections without posting any additional content, right? So if you're doing this, it's hard to test what's actually moving the needle. And by just making those updates, I saw an increase in views and visits to my profile. So I'm again, not having straightforward tools that tell you here's the volume behind these search terms and how to optimize for it. I feel like that's a pretty good case study for if you include search terms in your profile, you're going to rank better in search. And again, the connection of connections is you're also more likely to rank at the top of LinkedIn search through your degree of connection to other people. So if I was looking for a freelance writer, LinkedIn is going to show me my first degree connections first, assuming their headline kind of matches the term that I'm searching for, and then second degree and so forth. So again, if you have more connections, you're more likely to get surface when someone's looking for that particular title. There was another factor. I just have to remind myself so I don't remember or don't forget. Oh yeah, consistency. So this is
real quick, do you mind if I share your LinkedIn on here while we run through this?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Let's see if this works.
I get a lot of people being like, I don't have time to post content on LinkedIn. And what I've noticed is that I don't have to post content that often to get a significant amount of traction. I'll maybe post once a week, if that. But the consistency, the majority of the time that I spend on LinkedIn is engaging with other content. So I don't necessarily have to publish unique content to my profile. I might get reach through engagement, connections, and hashtags, but the simple acts of commenting on other pieces of content on the platform is a really good way to just get noticed. So I would say if you are strapped for time for using LinkedIn for your marketing purposes, start with commenting and engaging on other people's profiles, and then, set a goal of publishing maybe a new piece of content on a weekly basis if you can get it out. But I am by no means publishing content on every single day. So And what I mean, you can, some of these have like really taken off. I think there was one that I published that got like 80,000 views or something ridiculous.
wow.
And I have, let's see, I have 5,000 followers and over 500 connections. So definitely not 80,000 people personally connected with me on the platform, but that's the degree of like major proliferation that can happen by posting even like a single piece of content. So, I would just say that just even having like a limited scope of connections, like don't let that stop you from engaging with other content publishers on the platform and publishing your own content, because it can actually grow really quickly, right? Like if you published a single art post and you got 10,000 views and you got a ton of connection requests, you can see how it can grow exponentially over time.
Okay, so I think I figured this out in a way to share this so we don't have like sponsored overlays everywhere. Let's go through your LinkedIn. So you have your name, right? Jessica Foster.
Yep.
And then very brief, very concise what you do. SEO content strategist, SEO and web copywriting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not trying to be everything to everybody with that, right? Or
Right.
you're not bragging, right? You're just telling people what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Well,
and you talk about,
I'll interrupt and say, like, I kind of see this as like a title tag to my profile.
Yeah.
So not only is it including in the search term that I want to rank for, if someone sees that in the results, they notice like right away that applies to what they're searching for, rather than being like, I'm an experienced writer that helps da, 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 da. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's the instant sort of recognition and influence on clicks. Again, not having the data, but that is my theory on how this will work.
And then we have talks about, and does LinkedIn do this itself? Or
Honestly, I don't remember. I just noticed this recently and it hasn't
Yeah.
always been there. So I don't want to speak to that because I don't remember. I think there is a section that you can designate your hashtags, but I don't remember. And then one kind of add-on that I have here, as you see my face, is not so much a SEO consideration, or at least I don't have the data to back this up, but I've tried to create essentially a profile funnel. And when people end up on my profile, I want to make it immediately clear how to learn more about me or get into contact with me. Because what you realize is, like, you might see the headline in a long about section, but then like your media section and your call to action is also important in terms of making sure people know how to reach you. So I overtly say, like, in my about section, like where to contact me. I think I include my email address, and I just try to make it like stupid easy for people to learn more about me, so they don't have to dig through my profile to find more information. And you would think, like, inherently, if people wanted to message me, they would just message me. But I'm like, why not give you my email address? Why not include the link to my website? I don't want to make that information difficult to find. I do like an introductory like video here. It's been a while since I've updated this, but I think it's kind of a nice way to connect with me on like a human level. And then like I include relevant media there for people to like go to my website, go to my latest blog post. Sometimes I include a link to Search Engine Journal. So it's also kind of a good real estate to promote your most recent media.
100%. So first of all, if you write for Search Engine Journal, posting your Search Engine Journal posts on LinkedIn and claiming that you are a columnist at SEJ or anywhere else that you write is very important. It's important from an EAT perspective. It's important for that publisher as well. So for those of you that are listening, as I'm scrolling down Jessica's LinkedIn, I see a lot of the things that I typically see on a LinkedIn profile. But I really love your concise title at the top. Mm-hmm. Then she has a featured video of who am I? Want to get more traffic and leads with your website content? If your current methods aren't working, it's time to take a different approach. Let me be your saving grace. Okay. Yeah. Are you sure you're a copywriter? So, and then we get into the about.
The framework of this is a little it's different from what I look at from my perspective. So there is like my activity section, and then we get into the experience section, which again is like, I've changed this around a lot because I've had a changing of titles recently and stuff like that. But before, I used to say like SEO content writer or whatever the search term used to be that I was going after. For now, I'm not really pursuing much in terms of like inbound lead gen from LinkedIn because I am absolutely super busy. So I don't mind having associate director in my title for the first experience section. But, you know, historically, I have like all of my contributor like associations. And so when I'm publishing new content, like my theory again is like if I share a piece of content and tag Search Engine Journal, then subscribers to Search Engine Journal on LinkedIn are going to see that. And that's another potential opportunity to generate more connections. And so you'll see that all of my experience sections are filled out and they'll include search terms, minus, you know, Planned Parenthood and Boys and Girls Club. I'm not trying to
Well,
rank.
I love that because it shows where you volunteered and where you spend time. So I see a lot of people's LinkedIn, and it sounds like they were born doing digital marketing, right? So you have to like work your way up in the world, and having things that people have done and or volunteer or taking gap years and not needing to explain it, but if you want to explain it, you can. I love all of that from a LinkedIn perspective. Do a lot of hiring. So this is always great to see. And then you have your education on here as well. Raven Tools writer. Oh my gosh. So that was a while back. But yeah, I mean, this is all really great to see from an experience perspective. You have everything filled in here. You're volunteering, your skills. How important is it to fill in skills and to get endorsements on LinkedIn for those skills?
You know, I wish I had like a very like I'm all about numbers, right? And this is where I'm like, maybe LinkedIn one day is going to give us this information. So I can only speculate at this point, but the relevance of skills and how that potentially optimizes your profile for those terms is, it makes sense to me logically, but again, until we have like information to validate that, I'm not 100% sure. But I know for sure recommendations as a trust factor with potential clients is a huge deal. Like if you're a service provider, freelancer, whatever, and people are considering hiring you, having recommendations and having someone to vouch for your experience makes a lot of sense on a trust level. So in terms of that bolstering your LinkedIn SEO, we don't know, but if you have tons of people vouching for your experience and providing detailed recommendations, that's definitely going to support, you know, their inclination to work with you. I would love to know kind of more. And like we have some degree of speculation even for Google My Business, right? That the number and quality of your reviews on Google My Business influences SEO. So in like logic would assume that that's the case here, but I don't know. I definitely think it's valuable to have them if I'm trying to generate leads through the platform. And then if we're talking about multi-channel content marketing, screenshotting a recommendation or copy pasting it somewhere on social media, I try to get my reviews on Facebook and LinkedIn and Google as much as I can and just repurpose that content for social and being like, here's something my client said about this. So I just think like, if you're going to get a review from a client, why not have some of those on LinkedIn? Because people have mentioned within Messenger, they're like, oh, you have such good recommendations. Even if it's not an SEO factor, it's definitely like
it's funny because especially with all like some of the spam stuff too, they always pick up like, oh, so and so recommended you here. But it's great. It's great to have all that together. It makes perfect sense at the end of the day. And I'm going through your post on SEJ right now. How to win with SEO on LinkedIn. One, conduct keyword research. So we kind of got into that a little bit, right? What do you do? What do you want to be known for doing? What's the volume around these terms? How are they trending, especially in the marketplace? Put that as your title. Put that in some of your descriptions. Optimize your profile. That's your description, right? Number two. So, okay. Bullet point number one from Jessica Foster on how to optimize your LinkedIn profile: include a professional profile image to encourage clicks. Very important, is it not?
I like, you'll see on my profile, I have a cover image that has like some of my information and like a tagline, and that, is like copywriting, really. It's not
Mhm.
an SEO factor necessarily, or probably isn't, but it makes it, again, like super clear what it is that I do. It tells people where my website is and how best to contact me. I see a lot of people kind of like wasting this section as potential real estate. They'll just have like the blue background, and it's like, why not have some sort of line telling people what you do and where they can reach you? I think it's like visually really good real estate. It's like the hero image on your website. Like,
Totally.
just
I love that. That's a great takeaway.
and I
Number
wanted
four.
to touch
Oh,
on
go ahead.
the keyword research piece, because a lot of people ask, how do you do keyword research for LinkedIn when you don't know search volume? Like, LinkedIn doesn't provide that information. So I use like the search box as like my best indication of what people are actively searching for. So you can search for, let's say, SEO writer, and see how many profiles come up for that particular term. And then, much like you would analyze the search results in Google, I look to those profiles and see which terms people are using within their profile. So if I search for SEO writer, but then the top 5 profiles are using SEO copywriter, to me, it's kind of an indication that the algorithm is pairing those together, and that the search term I actually want to pursue is SEO copywriter. Now, it's not a hard science because we don't have the volume data available, but I do try to analyze the profiles that are targeting, or at least ranking for the terms that I would want to target, and then make a decision on how I want to optimize my profile. So, a lot of people just like generally do marketer, but maybe the right approach, or like the right term for you, is like Facebook marketing, or like be a little bit more specific for the terms that you want to surface. And I do see a lot of people missing that opportunity by having a headline that kind of just characteristically explains who they are, but not using the term that they want to target. Or being like a little too punchy, right? Like, people will be like, I am a marketing maverick. That's la la la. Um, that's not like inherently searchable on the platform. You might get some surfacing for marketing, but I think it's just a missed opportunity to target a term and use kind of compel those clicks to your profile by just being really clear what it is that you do and how you match what the user is searching for.
So do your research, find out what people are looking for on and off LinkedIn. See how LinkedIn is grouping those results when you do those terms. And don't make your profile say, I'm a marketing maverick, hustler, guru from whatever, hashtag stay humble, right? Like,
Right.
don't do that. Okay, so and then your fourth, and I think one of your final tips on this post, is to engage with other users' posts. So one thing I like about this, and another thing I like about LinkedIn, is LinkedIn reminds me of social media 10 years ago, right? It used to be, if you engaged on someone's Twitter, it didn't matter who it was. If it was like Michael Arrington or whoever, Jason Calacanis or Randy Zuckerberg or whoever, if you engaged on their Twitter, on their tweet, you either got their fans engaging with you, responses, likes, things like that. It kind of disappears now, right? But on LinkedIn, I see that happening all the
It's still
time.
like that. So that's why, I said the majority of my time on the platform is engaging with other people's content, which I think should be a relief to people who want to use LinkedIn marketing, because they're like, I don't have to publish as much as my own original content and use the right hashtags and hope it surfaces, because commenting and engaging with content that other people have produced is like still very effective, and you can grow your connections that way, and get your own content to surface with those connections. So I feel like if you're going to do anything, try to just comment on our, posts on a daily basis, and then maybe get your own content out once a week or so. Like you have these massive LinkedIn influencers that if you like Sunny Lenarduzzi is like a video or YouTube marketing person that gets like tons and tons of views, but then if you comment on it, your post could surface to absolutely all of her millions of followers hypothetically. And so I'm like, why wouldn't I just use, it's kind of like, it's almost like the authority of backlinks or something. Like, why not use their authority to my advantage when my profile is probably not as strong as theirs? And I'm kind of taking a chance on publishing my own content where if I publish on Search Engine Journal, it's going to reach so many more people. And so in terms of like the level of impact and effort on LinkedIn marketing, I'd rather engage with existing pieces of content and then occasionally post my own content.
Now, please remind me, if you write a piece, say on your own site or on SEJ or something like that, and then for some reason you decide to post that on LinkedIn, can you canonical back to the source, or is LinkedIn a walled garden so Google's not going to pick that up anyway?
You know, I've had this question myself about LinkedIn articles. Specifically, I always like link back in like, you know, within the LinkedIn article back to my original article if it's on Search Engine Journal or like on my website. So I don't know. I've just been sort of like, let's use the reach of LinkedIn to drive like referral traffic back to the original source. But yeah. Again, there's like, I have a lot of questions about it, and it's just an area of kind of curiosity, but that's kind of what makes it interesting and unique, because anybody can begin testing strategies on LinkedIn. I would never assume like say that I am the absolute expert on LinkedIn SEO. But, you know, I've started testing my own strategies, and, you know, algorithms change. Google algorithm changes, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all of these, what worked like 2 years ago might not work anymore. I do notice that like LinkedIn is giving us a lot more in terms of their analytics. We have Sales Navigator now that you can get information about, you know, like your paid campaigns. And so we're getting a lot closer to that, which is exciting.
Excellent. Excellent. It's been a real pleasure connecting with you finally today, Jessica. Yeah. I've dropped your Twitter handle in here and your LinkedIn profile. Where else can people find you online? And then also, what are some of the things that you really enjoy doing outside of the world of SEO and copywriting?
Yeah, good question. No one ever asks me that anymore. I play softball on the weekends, which is awesome. I am shortstop or third base often. I have a little
hot corner.
Sorry?
The hot corner?
The hot corner. So I always get a little nervous because I'm like, I use, you know, my hands for working and stuff. And I'm like a little like, maybe I'm playing dangerously, but yeah, I enjoy that. I obviously live in Seattle. Hiking is a huge thing here. If you don't hike, you're, you know, an outcast basically. And then I have my little dog, Max, who is my child for now. So he is
what kind of dog?
He's a Shih Tzu Bichon mix, and I'm very surprised he has not made an appearance. Because
Chiton? What do you call it?
Shishon.
Okay.
Usually he'll like perch up on the couch behind me, and you'll see a little owl-looking dog over my shoulder.
Nice. Very cool.
But yeah. And then before COVID, I traveled a lot more. So a lot of people knew me as kind of like this digital nomadic SEO person, but then I've been mostly based in Seattle for that.
How well do you know Miranda Miller, by the way?
That's a good question. Is that a Facebook person?
No, our editor at SEJ, she is such a digital nomad. Like, we'll be on a meeting and one day she'll be in Playa del Carmen, and then the next day she'll be like in Portugal, or I could be exaggerating. And then like the next week she'll be somewhere else.
That used to be my life more, but just circumstances brought me back to Seattle, and it's kind of nice to have a home base now. But
yeah,
a lot of my friends, and you know, like Chiang Mai, Thailand, huge hub for SEO people.
Yeah, how that happened? That there's
I just think because it's
Matt
like
Matt Eady's based out of there, right? And then Who's the guy from like the Carolinas that's there?
Yeah, I'm terrible with names, so apologies to
name.
anybody watching this that I don't
I know
remember.
Craig Campbell goes there all the time. They have all these like conferences or whatever. They used to.
Diggity marketing, and there's somebody else that I'm just totally stumped on. But there is like a whole hub there, I think, because it's affordable, but it's just been the weird like spoken place of SEO. There's like the conference there. I went traveling, and this guy like pointed to me. He's like, "You posted on Search Engine Journal," and that's not just me name dropping. He literally was like, "You posted on Search," and I was like, "This is the weirdest thing," because I'm in a totally different country and got singled out for that. And then I went to like an SEO workshop, and I was like, "Why are all the SEO people here?"
Kyle Roof.
Yeah, that's what. Okay, that's who I thought it was, but I wasn't sure. So if that conference happens again one day, hopefully I can make it out there. It's quite a trek. It's like 14 hours of flying.
I've never been to Chiang Mai, but I've been to Phuket numerous times, and
Chiang Mai is
more so like it's landlocked, right? You're like in the.
It is totally landlocked. It's kind of like the whole town is like a literally walled in square, and then there's some outside of that. So it's interesting.
Took a wrong turn in Phuket once and ended up in Malaysia on a boat.
That'll happen.
Yeah, it's really weird. Yeah. So awesome. Well, that's great to hear. So traveling and your Shih Tzu Bichon, and also playing the hot corner or shortstop in softball. So hey, we all need things to do besides work, right? If not, we're gonna drive ourselves crazy.
I don't know. I love SEO, so spend a lot of time doing it.
You need to get away from the computer sometimes and do something else. Jessica, it's been a real pleasure. Like I said, I did drop your Twitter handle, your LinkedIn. Anywhere else folks can find you online?
My website is keysandcopy.com. And LinkedIn and Twitter are probably the top two places to find me. You might be able to stalk me on Facebook, but if I accept your request, I don't know. I will definitely accept it on LinkedIn.
Boom.
All the connections.
All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday afternoon. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. I think just for about everybody in this industry. So I hope the rest of the day goes fantastic for you. Thank you to everyone who took the time today to jump on the SEJ Show live here on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, etc. Hit the bell, whatever you have to do, subscribe. There'll be more of these every week. Then next week, we're going to be dropping the audio version of the show. So again, Jessica, thank you very much for dropping in today. Thank you to all of you that have watched and have listened. And again, thank you to our sponsors, InMotion Hosting and SEMrush, for making today's show possible. It's been quite a treat. Anything you'd like to say before you say bye?
No, add me on LinkedIn. Thanks.
All right, I'll add you on LinkedIn. All right, thanks, Jessica. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more and click the notification bell